The Clone Wars. R2 Come Home. Following the unexpected explosion on board the Jedi cruiser Endurance, a Republic medical frigate was busily gathering the scattered escape pods. Mace Windu and Anakin Skywalker plunged their starfighters into the planet Vancor's atmosphere. The Endurance had crashed, carving an enormous furrow into Vancor's crystalline landscape. Debris was scattered for miles around. The cruiser was a smoldering wreck, but the bridge looked mostly intact. "Let's hope Admiral Killian and the command crew are still in one piece," said Mace. "Set down behind the cruiser. We'll approach on foot." They landed their starfighters away from the shaky wreckage and made their way towards it on foot. Their astromech droids accompanied them, R2-D2 with Anakin and R8-B7 with Mace. "You're not kidding, little buddy," said Anakin, looking around. "I don't like the feel of this place either." "Your astromech is programmed to feel?" asked Mace in surprise. "R2 is kind of a special case," said Anakin. Mace looked dubious. "He's got a lot of personality, that's all," said Anakin. "You encourage it too much," Mace remarked. They walked on, looking around at the huge chunks of debris smoking all around. The ground was scorched and littered with burning pieces of wreckage. "All right, start scanning the area for signs of life," Mace ordered, "and calculate an entry point to the cruiser." R2-D2 beeped at Anakin. "You're right, R2. It doesn't look good," agreed Anakin. "A bit jittery, isn't it?" asked Mace. But Anakin knew his droid. He must have seen something, right, R2? R2-D2 chirped a maybe. "Come on," said Mace. "It looks like R8 has found an entry point." Anakin glared at R2-D2, not wanting Mace to think his droid wasn't up to his job. They moved closer to the downed cruiser, but as they walked away, a pair of menacing eyes watched them go. Mace, Anakin, and R2-D2 stood just inside the jagged hole in the cruiser's hull, allowing their eyes to adjust to the darkness. R8-B7 shone his light into the hull. Wind-blown turquoise sand covered everything. Not wishing to be outdone, R2-D2 turned his light on and scanned the interior. Then he let out a sad chirrup. His light had picked out the body of a clone. Mace rolled the body over and found a blaster bolt mark in his chest. "This man did not die in the crash," he said. "He was executed, shot at close range." "The killer?" Anakin asked. "He beat us to the crash site, but why come here?" "We know the assassins were after me," said Mace. "Perhaps they returned to look for my body." R2-D2 found another dead clone who had died in the same way. "We need to get to the bridge to find Admiral Killian," said Mace. "Send the droids to scan for any survivors down here. Maybe the killer missed one." Mace and Anakin found more executed clone troopers on the bridge, but no sign of Admiral Killian or Commander Pons. "They must have been sucked into space when the cabin lost pressure," Mace said. Meanwhile, R2-D2 and R8-B7 were scanning the hangar bay, spotlights on full beam. For a second, a dark shape moved across the jagged opening in the ship's hull. R2-D2 spun his light to see what it was, but saw nothing. Then another dark shape flitted past him, and he heard a growl. It was a Gundark. The Gundark screamed and swiped at R8, but missed. The droids tried to escape, but a second Gundark cut off their exit. R2-D2 dodged and rolled, but R8-B7 was snatched up and torn to shreds. As R2-D2 slid across the room to the turbo shaft entrance, R8-B7's head rolled over and bumped into him. Anakin spotted something on the bridge gangway. "Is that a Mandalorian helmet?" he asked, walking towards it. Mace recognized the helmet. "Clone cadets," he murmured to himself. "Jango Fett, Boba..." As Anakin knelt down beside the helmet, the pieces of the puzzle came together in Mace's mind. Boba Fett had been one of the clone cadets aboard the Endurance, determined to destroy the Jedi who had killed his father. "Anakin, no!" he yelled, but Anakin picked up the helmet. The blast rocked the ship, and down in the hangar the Gundarks ran to escape the explosion, leaving R2-D2 in one piece. From a cliff top in the distance, the explosion looked like a blossoming flower. The watching bounty hunters exchanged glances. "I don't think he's dead," said Boba. "Forget the Jedi," said Aura. "We have hostages to worry about." "I want to get off this planet now," Castas complained. "This place is crawling with Gundarks, and besides, we've got these hostages to drag along with us now." He pointed at their ship, Slave 1. Admiral Killian, Commander Pons, and a clone navigation officer were tied up by the boarding ramp. "I don't want to take hostages," Boba stated. "I want Windu dead." "Boba, this extra baggage will fetch us a hefty sum from the Separatists," Aura told him. "Along with your killing Windu, we're looking at a profit." "Well, it's a lot of trouble for not enough payout if you ask me," Castas grumbled. "Relax," said Aura. "Boba is right. To get paid, we need proof of Windu's death. And if we killed Skywalker, we can ask for double." "Double?" Castas repeated, his eyes gleaming with greed. "Yes, but we need proof." Castas nodded. He, Aura, and Boba went to look for proof, leaving Bossk to watch over the prisoners. R2-D2 rocketed up to the shattered bridge. He found Anakin pinned under heavy debris. "Good to see you, buddy," said Anakin weakly. R2-D2 tried to clear some of the wreckage and found Mace, who had been knocked out. Frantic to save his masters, the little droid dug into the debris. More rubble began to move and fall. "Careful, R2, Anakin said, coughing feebly. "I'm afraid the whole bridge will collapse. I need you to go back to the fighters and call the temple for help, okay?" R2-D2 beeped in agreement. Then he spotted the bounty hunter speeder bikes approaching and warned Anakin. "You're going to have to handle this one," Anakin told him. "Cut them off somehow, then go get help. We'll hold out as long as we can. Go on, R2, go on." R2-D2 beeped and rocketed away. Castas, Aura, and Boba pulled up on their speeder bikes and started to pick their way into the ruins of the Endurance. "Come on," said Boba. "We've got to find Windu's body." "Careful, Boba," Aura called. As Boba walked forwards, a large piece of debris crashed down and almost hit him. He leapt out of the way. "Yeah, careful," said Castas with deep sarcasm. "I'd hate to only split the money 3 ways. They scowled at each other and clambered through the rubble, not guessing that a little droid was watching them. R2-D2 pushed a large piece of metal and sent it crashing down on them. The bounty hunters only just got out of the way in time. "This place is a death trap," said Castas. On the bridge, Anakin was struggling against the debris, pinning him down. He heard Mace cough. "Mace, can you hear me?" "My legs," Mace groaned. He tried to force push the debris from his legs, but that only made the bridge more unstable. "I already tried that," said Anakin. "Don't worry, I already sent R2 back to the fighters to call for help. I'm sure he has everything under control." Not far away, R2-D2 was raining boxes and debris down on the bounty hunters, who were climbing up the shaft. "This is no good," gasped Castas. "If we can barely survive in here, Windu must have been killed in the blast." "I'm not quitting now," said Boba. "Not when I'm so close." R2-D2 found a thermal detonator, triggered it, and dropped it. "Look out!" yelled Castas. The detonator went off and the explosion sent the bounty hunters tumbling down the shaft, followed by billowing smoke and chunks of debris. "That's it!" roared Castas. "We're out of here! No one could survive this place!" "A Jedi could," said Boba. "I hate to agree with Castas, but there is a better way to do this," said Aura. Boba glared at her as she spoke into her communicator. "Bossk, fire up Slave 1, she said. "We're going to blast what's left of this ship to pieces." "I hate just sitting here," said Anakin. "Calm yourself, Skywalker," said Mace. "We'll soon see if the faith you put in that droid is worth it." "I'm not worried about R2. He always comes through," said Anakin. "But I am worried about what he's up against. Do you know who's behind these attacks?" Mace glanced at Jango Fett's helmet. It was a bit scorched from the blast, but otherwise intact. He knew who was trying to kill him, and why. R2-D2 left the wrecked cruiser and returned to the parked Jedi starfighters. But as he rocketed up to get in his socket, a Gundark raced out of the debris and pounced onto the starfighter. After a vicious battle, R2-D2 managed to tether the savage animal to the fighter. Then he hit the thruster switch. The jets ignited, and the fighter shot across the ground. The Gundark and the starfighter crashed into the ship's debris, igniting a fire. R2-D2 chuckled and headed for Mace's fighter. Aura, Boba, and Costas were back at Slave One, and they heard the far-off explosion. "What was that?" cried Aura. "Windu," said Boba. "Jam any communications off this planet," Aura instructed. They ran up the ramp into the ship. The engines howled to life, and the ship rose into the air. R2-D2 jumped into Mace Windu's starfighter and powered it up. But as he blasted off, the bounty hunters saw him go. "The fighter's markings match Windu's," said Costas. "I knew it," cried Boba. "I told you he wasn't dead." Boba took control of the laser cannon as R2-D2 bobbed and weaved in front of him. A volley of lasers whizzed towards him, and the droid dodged close to the hull of the Jedi cruiser. The lasers ripped into the ship, but missed R2-D2. The droid blasted away from the planet towards the orbiting hyperspace rings. Boba eyed his target and destroyed one of the rings with a streak of red laser fire. "I've got you, Windu!" he yelled, but R2-D2 spun the fighter, rolled around the laser fire, and escaped into hyperspace through the other ring. "No!" cried Boba. He slumped back in his chair, defeated. "Well, there goes a fortune," said Costas. "Nice work, kid." On the bridge, Mace force-pulled Jango's helmet to him. "Whose helmet is that anyway?" asked Anakin. Mace stared at his reflection in the visor. "It belongs to a bounty hunter I killed on Geonosis," he said, "by the name of Jango Fett." "You mean the clone template?" exclaimed Anakin. "Yes," said Mace grimly. "He had a son, or at least a clone he regarded as a son. His name is Boba Fett." "I remember now," said Anakin. "Obi-Wan listed him in his report on Kamino." "Boba was on Geonosis when his father died," Mace went on. "He watched as I killed him." "That would complicate things," Anakin said. "Indeed." Aboard Slave One, the bounty hunters were furious. "This has gone well," Costas was growling. "Windu will be back here with a fleet. He'll hunt us down." "Don't count on it," said Aura. "The Jedi don't carry grudges, but I have ways of motivating him." She opened the cockpit door to the airlock room, where their hostages were bound and gagged. "We'll make Windu come to us next time, on our terms," Aura went on. "Now, let's get out of here. I want to regroup." Boba stared at the hostages as Slave One left the planet. In the war room of the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, a room full of senior Jedi were in the middle of a strategy session. Suddenly, a little astromech droid tumbled down a flight of stairs, whizzed across the room, and plugged himself into the holo projector. "R2?" said Ahsoka in astonishment. "What's wrong?" "You know this droid?" asked Plo Koon. "It's Anakin's droid, R2-D2, Ahsoka explained. Plo Koon nodded. "Well then, R2, deliver the message you so obviously need to communicate." In the remains of the Endurance, Mace and Anakin were in trouble. The explosion that R2-D2 had caused was threatening what was left of the ship. The engines were on fire, and the small explosions were happening all over the wreck. The Jedi had built a makeshift barrier between themselves and the approaching flames, but their clothes were starting to smoke. "Your astromech has been gone too long," said Mace. "He must have failed to deliver your message." "R2 will come through," Anakin insisted. "You put too much trust in that droid," Mace replied. The bridge trembled and began to collapse. Just then, 3 of Plo Koon's gunships appeared around the collapsing bridge. They were saved in the nick of time. A short while later, Ahsoka and Plo Koon attended to Anakin and Mace, who were lying on hover sleds. "Some pretty serious burns," said Ahsoka. but nothing a night in the Bacta tank won't fix. She patted her master on the shoulder and he winced. We were lucky to arrive when we did, said Plo Koon. Guess we have R2 to thank for that, Ahsoka added. Mace looked sternly at the little astromech. Come here, droid, he said. R2-D2 gave a few nervous beeps as he approached. I can see why your master trusts you, little one, Mace said. Good job. R2-D2 gave a series of happy beeps. That's definitely more praise than I ever get, said Anakin with a grin. To be continued.